Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. I'm Rose Bundock and I'm joined now by Perry Stoneman, Head of Utilities at Capgemini.
That's right. Hi, Rose.
Hi, thank you for joining me, Perry.
You're welcome.
Capgemini is due to release a new study, the World Energy Markets Observatory, early November, I believe. I wonder if you could give us just a couple of sneak findings on a kind of macro level of what we can expect to see in that report.
Sure. So for those that have seen our European Energy Market Observatory, we've done 18 editions of it. You'll see a lot of the same content. We'll look at climate change, we'll look at renewable energy, we'll look at security of supply. So those that are familiar with the European report will see consistent structure format. But this time the report will cover more of a global perspective. So we're looking at Asia and North America more significantly and in depth. So you'll get a bigger picture. If you want a few tidbits, it will be issued on November 9th, that's the first. But more importantly, we're seeing some interesting trends around renewable energy and the local cost of energy, the levelized cost of energy. We've seen for the first time that in some parts of the world, depending where you live, renewable energy, solar and onshore wind have become the cheapest forms of electricity to purchase and implement new green energy. So quite a contrast from where we were maybe 3 years ago.
Interesting. And in terms of the utility within that space, can you give us any kind of view on how that role has changed and the move towards digitization?
Yeah, well, the digitization, smart metering was maybe one of the first things utilities did to digitize, but we're seeing it now apply to smarter grids. So as you're adding more renewable energy to the grid, you have to make those grids much smarter. They're more complicated to operate, and it is a challenge for keeping the grid up. Sometimes, as we've seen in South Australia, they had a failure simply because of renewable energy integration. Interesting story about Musk tweeting about that, but maybe that's a different line of questioning. But they've also moved all the way back into the digital plant now, and we're seeing operators of generation start to digitize the plants through sensors, IoT sensors and analytics, and they're driving 27% savings out by digitizing the generation plants. So we're seeing digitization in the entire value chain coming from the utility sector these days, Rose.
So I suppose in some sense it must be quite hard for DSOs to visualize, what is going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of talk here about what could happen, but I suppose it's hard for them to really visualize. And I understand there's an interesting game that Eneco has produced that allows that kind of simulation of digitizing and transforming. And I believe you played it yesterday, Perry.
I did play it yesterday. I've played it a couple times. It's actually in Eneco, the Dutch utility, along with Fresh Forces, a gamification company that created the game. It's called Newtonian Shift. I played the first version of it, which was really about creating awareness and allowing people to be free to play a game in a fictitious setting about energy transformation. So Newtonian Shift Game 1 was really a case where you had this fictitious country, Newtonia, bordered by a oil-producing nation and a hydroelectric producing nation that they need to trade with. Energy East and Energy West were forced to find new ways of transforming the network grid, adding smart grids and adding renewable energy. And the game would be played over 4 hours. So the first version taught you whether or not transformation is coming. And it was clear transformation is coming. The game yesterday was the next step. How do you transform? And so we played it yesterday here at the event, and it was quite interesting to see how quickly you had to get renewable energy integrated onto the grid, how fast you had to make the grid smart to be able to turn off some of the old coal-based generation. And it's a fantastic game. I encourage anybody that's interested in taking your business and company through a safe game to envision what that modernization of the grid looks like, to reach out to Eneco or Fresh Forces or Capgemini and inquire about having the game played yourself. Fresh Forces, I believe, are going to Australia to see some of our clients in November to play the game. So they will travel.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've got regulatory forces going on, you've got tech startups as part of the game to kind of really represent what is happening, certainly as in Europe and as in other parts of the world.
Right. So the game has different actors and players. So you have tech in the game, Google. You have the industry giants. You have the communities and cities. So it's a very complex game that it's fun to play.
And what are the key takeaways? I mean, is Eneco kind of set it up so that utilities do walk away? If to succeed, they have to achieve certain things.
Well, and Eneco, I said, used it to create awareness within their own employee base that this transformation is coming. The new game teaches them how to execute the transformation. So it does show them how to integrate renewables, how to look for new technologies, how to roll the dice on some startups.
Great, so partners. So being open to partnerships, would you say is key?
Yes. Excuse me. A gentleman that played the game with me that I know from Canada, Ron Deasy, yesterday, had the wealth of experience of being through it before. So you could see Ron moving very quickly early in the game to acquire renewable energy assets, et cetera, and make consortiums and team up. I was playing the role of an investor. Ron was at me right away co-investing in some new assets and things. So he created consortiums and got investment behind. He lobbied the government for changes. And as you play the game, you get stars if you achieve your objectives. Every company has different objectives, so there's not one purpose to all the companies. Ron was stacking up stars pretty quickly early on in the game. So the trick is to partner fast and move towards the renewable energy assets relatively quickly.
And does that reflect Capgemini's advice for utilities, in the real world?
In the real world, everybody has to take their own pace. It depends where you live and what the objectives are. We're seeing a lot of community-driven push for renewable energy. We've got communities and large corporations pretty much insisting that they want renewable energy. For instance, Google likes to drive their data centers with renewable energy. If they can find a deal, partnership with the utility, they will. But they've also been known to build their own wind farms and solar farms. So there's a fair amount of shift. Depending where you are, you need to move very fast, or some other places are slightly better protected and they have a little more time to do the planning, and really depends on the regulatory framework that they're operating within.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Perry. Thank you for your insights and
Thank
for
you, Rose.
sharing that excellent game. I think everyone should try it.
I do too.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in the Engerati studio. You can watch plenty more Engerati videos on our YouTube channel. Goodbye.